Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nexus at Night, your weekly Vanguard podcast. Today is I am Matt, and joining me is
Hi, I'm Root Atlas is at a comedy show. He's abandoning our channel.
True. And joining us today, we have a most revered guest, Living Proof. Say hello to everyone.
Hey, what's up, everybody? What's going on, team? Proof here. Got to get my whole spiel in, Got to get the juices flowing.
So, Living Proof, formerly master of Spike Brothers, now master of Dark States, and I guess Bruce specifically. Uh, So we're here today to talk about a post you made, right? And why don't you tell everyone what that post was? It gets generally about.
So, in general, it's just kind of me. I don't know the right word. Lamenting how the design in Vanguard kind of always airs towards, or not the design. Yeah, the design and the people kind of wanting more attacks in their decks. So how the whole idea that if your deck is a quote unquote 3 attack deck, it's like a I said albatross in my post, kind of like don't play it because it's a 3 attack deck. So I was kind of just hoping or wanting to see more design things in Vanguard that kind of helps out these 3 attack decks and make them more interesting and fun to play.
Yeah, and I had to explain what albatross meant to Atlas. Atlas was like, I don't know what he means by this. I'm like, and I guess he didn't read Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner or something. But albatross is kind of like a thing that's kind of like possibly good, but generally like a bad omen kind of thing. Uh, of like things to come, I suppose.
Right.
And yeah,
So if you,
go ahead.
I was saying, so yeah, if you're slapped with this label of 3 attack deck, it's like, do I really want to play it or want to find something that does what you can do, but also gives me more attacks in the process?
Right. I think the idea is that we have like decks like already like Bruce, Bastion, Magnolia, and Nirvana that have like attacks past 3. And I might be missing one here and there, but
There's also Barrow.
Oh, Barrow Magnus. Sure, yeah, Barrow. And then you have decks that can't, like Prison, Orphis, Eugene,
Yeah.
Zorga.
And Zorga.
Sorry about that. And so it's like, well, what do we do about? Like, I guess, like, are these decks too good? Like, when they don't have when they have multi-attacking, or people just not playing enough of the decks without it? And I think for me, a lot of it comes down to the overtrigger, or not the overtrigger, the Persona ride, because the Persona ride makes it like really, really hard to guard, like anyway. And when you have multi-attacking, it's that much better, right? Because like if there was no Persona ride, then the multi-attacks being smaller would be pretty relevant, I think. Instead of just being like, oh, here's a 33k 5th attack, right?
Yeah. Although that wouldn't stop Bastion anyways, but that's a different problem. That's just the way that deck was designed. Although, while I do think like power numbers are also relevant, like the bigger you can make your extra attacks, the better, obviously. But I feel like from just a math perspective, the more attacks you have, the more opportunity you have to do damage. So like, in terms of cards spent guarding an attack, if you theoretically had a 28k column versus two 13k attacks, they would both be 2-card guards, but then if you have no cards, then obviously the 13k columns are dealing 2 damage, where the 28k column is only dealing 1.
I mean, they're dealing 2 damage, provided that you don't get a defensive trigger, right?
But yeah, that's why I say, like, potential for damage, right?
Yeah.
But, I think that's one of the problems, is, like, the more attacks you have, the more potential damage you can deal, where, 3 attacks is 3 attacks.
Right. So it's like everybody knows what your cap is, so they can plan their guard effectively. It's a little bit harder to do that when you have more attacks that they can come at you in different waves. And like in the case of Magnolia, they can vary their attack numbers based on what you do because they can boost or attack from the back row. so it kind of makes guarding a little more trickier in that situation, which
Mhm.
is compounded by the Persona Ride giving power to the front row across all of the multi attack decks.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of like people. Well, let me back up. The genesis of this post comes from my Discord because the Stoicheia area is very um, active, and so that's littered with either Zorga, which is a 3 attack deck, or Magnolia, which is not. And during the lyrical reveal season, they've had 1 or 2 decks that are order focused that enable multi attacking. I think one of them specifically, I forget the name of the particular boss unit or the ride line, but a lot of it is making jokes about Zorga because she operates with order cards, and one of which enables multi attacking. So it led to a lot of discussion in my Stoicheia area from the Zorga fans who really want some type of multi attacking to come in set 3 to help out Zorga, to help level the playing field, so to speak, for poor Zorga, who's only a 3 attack deck right now and trying to hang on.
See, so in terms of like what we could do about 3 attack decks, because I don't think every deck should end up having multiple attacks. I feel like that gets really boring, and I feel like that's been a problem throughout the entire game. As we get closer to the end of any particular era, as every deck gains more and more attacks. And I feel like there are other ways to bridge the gap, it's just that people are probably not going to like any of the things I suggest. So, the first one
I
is,
did, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so, like, taking some cues from some of the Lyrical Monasterio reveals, like, Alestiel, the ride line that works with, like, even or odd grades, has a rear guard that when you put it down, like, for every 3 odd grade units you have, it gives something 5k in a crit. So if you have the ideal board setup, you could have an entire front row with 5k in a crit. And so that is one of the things you could do to make up the difference is, increase the potential damage you can do across 3 attacks by just having a lot of crit pressure early.
Yeah, because it's like, how do you make up for it? And just
Mm-hmm.
be threatening quicker. And that's a very easy way to do it. And V series was kind of doing okay in that regard, and like with the gift system, but we know how that kind of panned out as time went on.
Mhm.
And I mentioned in my post, like I really like what Brentgate does by introducing new mechanics to the mix with prison and the set orders and
Mm-hmm.
the worlds for Orphis. And if you have 3 attacks, like give them maybe some higher defensive capabilities to make up for the lack of offensive pressure that they can put down. And prison really does that well, in my opinion, because they can hamper the opponent's resources and gather their own value through triple drive or other defensive payoff cards via the prison system. So things like that, like if you buff up their defensive capabilities, it might bridge that gap a little bit easier without having to err on the side of giving them more attacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is another thing I was going to bring up with prison is that, prison has a lot of grind potential, right? Because you can
Oh
imprison
yeah.
things, kind of force your opponent to spend resources getting their cards back. You have turquoise to penalize them for taking cards out of prison and take away their offensive capabilities. And so I think part of the reason why prison does well relative to other decks that are not Bruce or Bastion is because it has that grind power. So even though it doesn't have a lot of offensive pressure right now, I think the deck is still lacking a finisher. It still does pretty well just being able to grind out your opponent, and I think not a lot of people have played Orphist, at least in Japan, but I think Orphist is relatively okay if my comparison point is Zorga, because uh,
A
Orphist
lot
has more
a lot of people
consistent.
Yeah, a lot of people
Mm,
liken Zorga to being less consistent Orphis. They kind of
yeah.
achieve similar numbers. They achieve massive amounts of value over the course of the game and kind of just beat face with big columns, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, Orphist, you have all these different options to retire your opponent's rear guards. Like, You have the Falcon, where both players have to retire something at the end of turn. You have the Triple R, obviously, where you retire a Shadow Army to retire an opponent's rearguard, and you also have an Order that retires things. So Orphist has that grind power fairly consistently because you have a lot of different retire options, whereas Zorga, you have the one Order that you play like a couple copies of, and you can kill exactly one thing that turn.
Mm-hmm. And then Zorga has the issue where it kind of can fail on itself by not having an order late in the game when you really need to try to alchemy
Or worse,
magic.
you just have a bunch of the same of like the same order.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite. You have like 4 GDR, and you're like, great.
Yeah.
Can I get anything else, please?
And even, like, Dragonic Overlord is even doing better than Zorga right now, just because you have Overlord's unblockable rearguard attack, and then you also have Berserk Dragon, so you can fairly consistently retire at least 2 things while still making decent numbers, so... You know, aside from just crit pressure, I think the thing that's working right now for the more successful 3-attack decks, although Overlord is technically not 3 attacks, is, you know, grind power, being able to draw out the game more, being able to control the board a little bit. And,
Yeah.
you know, I like what you
And
said about adding more defensive power. It was something I was thinking about for set 3, is what if they gave Orphist, like, defense tokens? So, kind of working on the idea of the evil decoys from V, where you have something with, like, low power, but it has intercept and shield value, so what if they just made the opposite of a Shadow Army token, where it has 0 power, but 15k shield and intercept?
That'd be kind of cool, not gonna lie. And it kind of fits his whole bringing things back from the dead necromancy power.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be down for that.
Yeah, it's still bizarre
And
to me that they kept the trigger power change from V, and then didn't bring back the shield values.
Yeah.
Or like then lowered the shield values. I don't know. I thought that was really weird.
Yeah, and now they're, like, scrambling to give the shield value back because they realized it was a mistake.
yeah, that was a weird. I'm cool with the. Well, initially I wasn't cool with the trigger power being 10k, but that's because I kind of feared that it would go the way of V era and be like super quick and be super fast games with like your decisions not really mattering. But that has not been the case so far in D era. But I would have liked to the grade ones to remain 10k shields. I don't see why they had to revert those back, because now they also take those out of premium slots because nobody's gonna play 5k shield grade ones unless the skills are super pushed, which would also harm D series. So it's like compounding things folding in on itself by just reducing the shield value down for D era.
Yeah.
So yeah, so now they're trying to put those things back via order cards, which people really don't like to play because they're -1s if you use them in most cases.
Yeah, I think...
Or you're trying to ham fist it into triggers again like they did before.
Yep. Yeah, I think Blitz orders have been largely unsuccessful right
I think
now.
Yeah,
Nirvana had to play it for a while because they had like no shield whatsoever.
Yeah, but now
I
that
think,
we
oh,
have
yeah.
Urger, like, why would you waste the slot on a Blitz order? Yeah, that is another thing, is, like, better Blitz orders. I think, because in G, their solution was, for lacking shield value, was G Guardians. And I feel like Blitz orders probably have to be reworked to be similar to G Guards in some way. Where,
Yeah, they
you
offer
know,
like massive value and shield at the same time.
yeah. And then you're also not taking up deck space, shoving in these cards, and also being able to add more utility, because a lot of the Blitz orders right now are just choose a thing, give it power.
True. Like the best blitz order in the game is Ghost Chase, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because you can protect yourself and reuse something later.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you massive utility throughout the course of the game and always lets things be live on the board to be useful later.
Yeah. So, which that seems to be getting more into, like, just overall game design. Although I do feel like if the intention is to make certain decks grindier, that they would have to give stronger defensive cards. So like basically things that decks would start needing to have denial griffins again to in order to curb the
Oh
power of a
no.
multi attack.
Oh no, please no. Please no. I don't want to. I don't. Keep me away. Get me out.
I
Good
told you
old
all of my ideas are gonna probably be unpopular. Like denial griffins is one of my suggestions for bridging the gap a bit. Is decks with less attacks have stronger utility orders to control the board, like denial griffin.
The issue with introducing denial Griffin orders into D era is that since we're in the nation system,
Yeah.
they're either gonna have to be generic. So I was about to say clan. So every nation can have them, and which means the multi attack decks can potentially some way in the future have access to them, which kind of opens us up to the whole timely pedal around issue of near tier zero G era. I hated that time because good lord, but I don't want to trigger that memory. But if you give multi attack decks access to mid battle phase interaction, it makes them grossly better. So then the alternative would be to make them restrictive to certain grade 3 units, which also means that they're not going to be future proofed for whenever they're trying to move on from the whichever name you tie it to.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a double-edged sword in that fashion.
Yeah.
I don't know how I don't know how they would work it to make it
Yeah.
work with the 3 attack things, but not work with the multi attack
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, because, one of the problems with having lots of attacks is that, sometimes the math will end up not working out. Where, 3 attack deck, a lot of times is like probably around 6 cards, let's say, if you wanted to guard all of them, where, especially when things get super crazy and decks are attacking like 8-9 times, that is so many cards out of your hand. So one of the other things, if we're looking at defensive utility, is like, how do you deal with that many extra attacks aside from... Because, increasing shield value doesn't stop the fact that there are 3 extra attacks happening that turn, right?
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
like, something like Denial Griffin would be hard to implement because, like what you said, how do we restrict it to just the 3 attack decks? And then I guess another option is something like Honolly, where...
That's where I was gonna go.
So I do
Where you
wonder
can
how, like...
tax the
I do wonder how, like, a Honolly type card would exist in G era, or D era.
But the problem, like, is a similar thing with Honolly, right? You have to like find it. Like, how many of those cards are you playing? You're just playing 4.
Yeah.
I guess Zorga would have a field day with it because you play Hendrina and then you can just mill it and then call it back out with Zorga.
Yeah.
Right.
Issue being most things can retire it during the battle phase or the main phase, so it might not even be relevant to pop off. Stop this Leonard, which Leonard's gonna just swing into the Honolly column first off rip. So does it really matter? I don't think so.
Just frontline the Honolly.
Yeah.
Wait.
Something I was thinking of was maybe some type of defensive mechanic which can activate on the 4th plus swing. That not necessarily a Honolly, but maybe like a blitz order or some type of existing order. Maybe you could like set it, do like a defensive set order, which trigger kind of like burst from Battle Spirits, if y'all are familiar with that. If not, I can explain it real quick.
Do, because I'm really dumb.
So burst is a mechanic in Battle Spirits where you set a card face down. In this case, it'd be in the order zone, and then when the condition is met, you flip it face up and play it for free. So say you play a set order face down, which with the condition is when your opponent attacks for the 4th battle or more, or for a set amount of power, say it's over 35k power, for example. You flip it face up, it does something defensively for you, and then you put the set order into your drop zone. So it's been spent, so to speak. Or it could just exist face up in the order zone and not have any other value. I think that'd be a cool mechanic to explore. That's why I was kind of hoping that they would go with the set orders in terms of doing like a burst type of setup. But I think that'd be a cool design space to explore in the future, doing something like that.
Did these burst cards do anything like other than like being set and triggered? Or
They can be set and triggered. They can be spells. Some of them are also creatures, so that they can be summoned for free after being set down as a burst card. There's a variety. I think there's only spells and creatures in Battle Spirits. Oh, there's also nexuses, which are like equipments or enchantments for magic that kind of
yeah,
exist. But from my memory, I have very limited knowledge of Battle Spirits. I don't think there's any like burst nexuses, but I'm sure they've explored that at some point because the game is also fairly old.
I think kind of where that like just from like a card design perspective, like if I read a card and it basically starts and says, "Oh, play this only if it's the fourth battle or more," I would kind of be off that card immediately.
That's
Like,
fair.
like it's too situational, if that makes sense. And I'm just like, I
Mhm.
want a card that like does something. But if the card is like a split card, like do X if it's fourth battle or more, do X instead, or like do something, or like set it, and if it's set, it does X is like would be a much more enticing card for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
that makes
I feel like that's something Bushiroad is really reluctant to do, is to just have two separate skills that apply in different situations.
like
Like,
because the card just being dead,
mm-hmm.
like if you're playing against for playing against prison or something, you just have this card like, yep, this is a card I did not draw, has no shield, is completely useless to me. It
Yeah.
would be like, obviously if you drew it for the ride line, it wouldn't be so bad because you just pitch it. But
Mm-hmm.
like, obviously what would happen is you would find it immediately after you get grade 3, and just feel really really bad.
Yeah. And then also, like, a lot of the cards they've been printing with extra shield only gain extra shield, and it's like, this could do something else too.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But it just seems like something Bushiroad is very reluctant to do, is have two different abilities that can apply in different situations.
Yeah.
And
But if we want to go down this idea of a set order that does something defensively for you, it can also be used as a bluff card if they make enough of them over the course of time, where they could make one that says, condition at the beginning of your ride phase, turn it face up, and then draw two cards. So you set it on your turn, and your opponent thinks it's something that can interact with their field, so they play conservatively on your turn. And then come your turn, it's like, whoop, flip up this order, and I get to draw two cards because it's like a delayed draw two, so to speak. And you kind of bluff your opponent. So it adds another layer of player interactivity, which people also want to see in Vanguard. So I don't know. Now that I've talked it through some more, I'm really set. Fun. I'm set on this idea of like these face down set orders that can do something defensively or somehow can influence your opponent to interact in a certain way. I think that'd be a really cool design space to go down.
yeah. So basically we would need like the G zone back just for orders.
Yeah, or they can exist in your deck that you play in like similar rules. It'd be like one order per turn. So
Yeah.
it can, if your deck like Bruce or Zorga, it can maybe be part of your alchemy magic or something. I don't know how the rules will work out in that case. Or
See-
maybe not necessarily they can like operate in their own design space, but maybe they'll go in their own deck. You can also maybe put them in like a separate deck, G Zone esque type thing. I don't know. It'd be fun to figure that part out too.
Yeah.
Secret mage, secret orphist.
Secret agent Orphist.
Then so a lot of that conversation just now was in terms of like defensive utility and kind of grinding out the game more, but we can also talk more about other ideas for how we could help a 3-attack deck offensively, and now is the part where I get to bring up a whole bunch of ideas everyone will hate.
Oh yeah.
There's a theme here.
Yeah. So one of the ideas was burn damage.
Oh, I hate this one.
Yeah. So, because at the end of the day, your goal is to deal 6 damage to your opponent. And
Hmm.
obviously, with 3 attacks, you only have so many opportunities to actually deal the damage to your opponent. So one way you could make up that difference in potential damage dealt is with burn damage. If you have a way, even if it was just like 4 or less, if you have a way to at least get your opponent to 5 damage, so that they can't just look at your 60k column and be like, all right, no guard. That is something. But obviously, burn damage is annoying and everyone hates it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can
yeah.
kind of see it though. I played games where you have like low life, so to speak, like duel masters. You only have 5 shields.
Yeah.
Of course, you can generate more, but there was a form of burn in that game of burning down your shield, so you don't get the value of adding the cards back to your hand.
Mm-hmm.
This was very much favored by control play styles or ways to cheat out these big shield burning aspects early.
Hell
But
yeah.
I can see it working. I can see it working. Maybe kind of like Drag Ruler Phantom
Mm-hmm.
from late game or late limit break era.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe a Zorga S card can like retire itself and another card or do something with your order cards in your drop zone or something to deal a damage to your opponent. And
Yeah.
triggers would still apply to make it a little more fair.
Mm-hmm. Like
Or maybe
obviously,
if you
like the frustrating thing about burn damage a lot of the time is like a lack of counterplay. So it would either have to be like slow and basically to the point of basically being an alternate win condition like Gize, or
Mhm.
it would have to be in a way that your opponent could interact with it. So I could imagine you putting a burn damage card in prison, because if you just set a high prison threshold, then your opponent could interact with that, but it can also act as basically an alternate win condition, where if you can imprison enough things and then activate the order to deal damage to your opponent.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with a burn at 5 if like the condition were like something you could play around
Mm-hmm.
and or like at least have like some interaction with, and B like was kind of absurd.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got 10 in prison, deal damage.
Yeah.
Like, no one like if they let that happen, it's like it's kind of it's like what was that deleter card?
Glendios.
No, the stride.
The stride?
The stride that if you have like
Uh,
20 and 20 like some ridiculous number of vanish deleted, you win the game.
Oh yeah. I think it was Igorg? That was like 15
Igorg?
vanished
That
Yeah,
sounds
original deleter of Igorg. So your opponent, if the number of cards in damage zone is 4 or more, and the number of face down cards in your opponent's bind zone is 13 or more, you win the game.
Yeah, like no one got to 13.
I've
But,
never
like-
seen Igor win the game.
Right?
Yeah,
Like it just never happened. But you're like that's fine, right?
yeah,
Like I think when Igor was first spoiled, people were like freaking out about it a little bit, and then everyone was like, "Eh."
you're like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
this is
also win
impossible.
cons are super scary.
Yeah. It was. I mean, it wasn't as bad as Glendios was, even in Limit Break era. It was like a thing played, and it was really annoying.
Yeah, yeah. My inspiration for that was because recently they just revealed Bladewing Reiji today, which has a ridiculous condition for dealing 2 damage.
I don't know. Did they reveal Bladewing Reiji?
This is a Nelson Mandela effect thing. Are we sure we really saw?
Yeah, but my inspiration for the burn damage was like they had Die Kaiser back, where if you check a grade 3 and your opponent played exactly 1 sentinel, you could burn them for damage. And then they just revealed Bladewing Reiji, which is like, instead of building up soul, you're taking cards out of your soul to bind them face down. And if you have 15 or more face down cards in your bind zone, you can deal 2 damage to your opponent's vanguard.
I am 100% confident this card will never deal 2 damage to me with that effect.
Almost certainly Because, like, you have 2 cards to bind things, Reiji itself, and then, I think, the grade 1. You will never get to 15 in any kind of reasonable time frame.
Oh, I'm just not worried about this card.
Yeah.
Just Soul Blast 30. It's fine.
I don't
Easy.
I don't know if you can even get to 5 cards bound face down in a reasonable time frame.
I think you can get to 10, honestly.
Can
I think people will get to 10 pretty reasonably if they want to put in the effort.
yeah, but okay, so
Ultimately, I would, if I open this card, I would look at it and be like, and throw it away. I just wouldn't even bother.
yeah. Yeah, well, okay, the axe skill isn't once per turn, but you also have to soul blast to bind something from your soul, so it's 2 soul every time.
Yeah, you just got to hit 20 soul for 10 cards of bind. Easy.
Yeah, easy.
Also, the fact that it's not bind zone is 13 or more is kind of infuriating.
Yeah, because Reiji's been nothing but 13s its entire career.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
And then
The
Yeah.
original might have been 15, actually. I could be stupid.
let's see. I'm already on the wiki looking at like Glendios and stuff. Blade, Wing, Reiji. Let's see.
Pretty sure every
Original
Reiji
Reiji
ever has
is
been 13.
no, yeah. The original one is if it's 15 or more, and Solo gets 2 crits.
Yeah.
Well-
All I remember is people sitting on it when, like, in Limit Break era when you were at 3 damage and just, like, attacking you with Reiji. And then just being like, would you like to take it? And you're like, well, obviously not. And so you just play a fair
Fun
game.
times. Fun
Yeah,
times.
But then sometimes your opponent was playing Dote and it didn't matter. And you're
yeah.
like, oh, well.
So yeah, like Dai Kaiser was kind of my inspiration for like if they had burn type effects just to kind of help you bridge the potential damage gap, and then obviously we have Glendios type cards with alternate win conditions, which would be very hard to pull off in things besides Prison, because I don't know how you do that for the other decks. I guess Zorga maybe if it's like a card that's like if you Alka Magic and there's 5 cards in your bind zone, you win the game or something like that. Or like 10 cards, I don't know. Something ridiculous that's hard to achieve, but could
You need to spend
theoretically...
5 turns at grade 3? You need to spend 5 turns at grade 3. That's a really long time.
Yeah.
I think there's also like an on-hit booster that puts something into your bind zone.
Yeah. But, you know, something ridiculous like that. Where it's like...
As long as it doesn't, I would say, as long as it doesn't err on the side of Overlord the Purge, I think I'm chilling on the idea of burn damage.
Okay. And then the other unpopular idea that everyone will hate is Mildex.
Yeah, I know, I hate this one. I hate Mill, especially in Magic, because people talk about Mill as like, oh yeah, I'm really cool for liking Mill decks. And I'm like, it's actually like the most like lame, normal alternate win con that people think they're real cool about caring about, and I'm just like, I cannot give a shit.
Yeah. They did it very briefly with Mega Colony, but I don't think you ever actually won by deck out.
No, not a single time.
Nah, you won by sacking with whichever the dude's face was.
Mm-hmm.
I hated that card because
Antlion.
inevitably, somehow, I don't know if it's like a best of 3 or like just some weird luck where the dude would mill perfect. And I'll be like, well, can't guard with my triggers now. Guess I'm gonna just eat all this damage real quick when my hand is a fistful of triggers.
Yeah, but the flip side is like I'd have these games where I'm like just like hopelessly, I cannot kill the Mega Colony player. Like I cannot. Like he has that. Like they have that many cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they rode through 4 of the Gunning Colio, missed every time, and just decked out. Like, all right, cool.
Nice.
Easy game.
I bet.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do?
Now, I will say though, shockingly, I actually like mill strategies in other card games, and like other lame strategies like that. Like in Magic: The Gathering, when I played briefly a couple years ago, I was a Simic Flash player, which people hated that playstyle in best of 1. So I don't know if there's an equivalent in Vanguard, but basically I would just play my turn on my opponent's turn and be able to untap and attack right away. So have pseudo flexibility and like pseudo haste or not summoning sickness. It was great. People hated it. You couldn't play stuff safely. I would just play things freely. It was great.
Yeah, the secret against deck like that is like you need to just get on board before them, and then
Hmm.
you're just like, oh no. Then you
Yeah.
basically have to play normally. But like, yeah, it was. If people were really bad at playing like control matchups too, or like playing
Hmm.
control into it, people would just like kind of like run out stuff and just lose every time.
And
Yeah,
then there was a
that-
recent what was it? Blue black mill with rogues. That was a recent thing in Magic the Gathering and Standard.
yeah.
I thought that was a cool deck to watch play. So yeah, I'm a fan of mill as long as it's not like the way Mega Colony did it. I really didn't like that, but
Mm-hmm.
if you make it like I do nothing else but I'm gonna mill. Can you win before? Can you deal 6 damage before I deal 50 damage to you by milling? Technically speaking,
Yeah.
The answer is yes, generally.
Yeah, I
true.
think I think I've gone through all of the ideas that I had. So either like decks gaining crits early, like by turn 3 if not earlier, even if they're going to be stuck at 3 attack. For like an aggressive 3 attack decks, like big numbers with crits consistently as early as turn 3, I think is probably what's going to be needed to bridge the gap between 3 attack and, multi attack decks. Although, maybe turn 4 because like other decks like Bruce are also kind of limited to turn 4. Ba- I think Bastion broke the rules a bit by just being online turn 3 and also having massive columns on top of that. Like, I think they were counting on the deck being all grade 3s to limit Bastion a little bit, but so far it hasn't worked because, getting up to turn 3 is like fast enough that you can't really completely rush them unless you're like Magnolia, where, you throw out this board really early and then continue to just step on the gas and increase the number of attacks that you have.
They can do that now
It,
for sure. But
Yeah.
like with
it
set
was all
one, they basically made it so that no other deck could really be as aggressive as Bastion was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and
Like,
now you can't really punish them because now they have both Alden and Chosen Knights. So if you
Hmm.
try to rush them down and deal 3 damage to them, feasibly they can play Alden and Chosen Knights in the same turn, draw
yeah.
3 cards, and have triple drive.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
skill game.
Although, you know, like Bastion is still limited by being mostly grade 3s, but I think right now Magnolia is the only deck that is continually aggressive enough to actually punish that.
I think Nirvana has a case because Bastion can't really afford to play the slow game against Nirvana
Mm-hmm.
because they can just make big numbers freely. So
Yeah.
they have to give them damage, but by giving them damage, they put arcs in Nirvana online to make their hand bigger and their attacks bigger. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's an interesting back and forth matchup between
Yeah.
those two.
Yeah, I think Nirvana is good. It's just like for decks like Orphist and Zorga, I think Orphist can kind of do it because you can kind of retire their board, but like Zorga is in real bad shape, and I
Hmm.
think if Brantgate is going to be the grindy control nation, which it seems to be, then if Zorga is being framed as the more aggressive deck, either multi-attacking, which is the problem we're trying to solve right now, or like gaining crits earlier. I think Nectar of Sensations is almost there, but the requirement of 15 cards in drop for the crit is just a bit too high. I've started testing out having Lady Demolition in the deck just because, even though it's a bad card, if I can get the on-hit mill 5, it puts me that much closer to having Nectar online early.
I haven't seen Lady Demolish yet. I've
Yeah.
just seen Open Prey, Mulligan 5 for Hendrina, and then just start looping her into perpetuity.
This is kind of off topic, but Atlas and I were talking about. Atlas made a comment about how new cards often give you more decks,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, no, just look at Bastion, right? Like before set two, there were like kind of like two builds of Bastion you could play, even though one was like slightly better than the other. And
Hmm.
now you have Occam Chosen Knights, and there's one build of Bastion.
Yeah. That definitely happens.
Like you could play the Retire Order or not before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And now it's like now you play 4-0 come Chosen Knights and you don't look back.
Yeah. Like, why not?
Easy.
And even Japan is fluctuating on that. Sometimes they'll play more of the Counterblast 2 Draw 2 order.
Really?
Yeah, I don't
That's
get it either.
incorrect.
But
It's,
Yeah.
I've
it's
seen
also a draw 2 for Counterblast 1.
yeah, it is. I totally agree. I don't understand
Mhm.
what Japan sees in the start deck order. I would 100% play Chosen Knights over it.
Same.
Is Japan bad at math?
I
I'm
mean,
just kidding.
I think Japan is just bad at this game, honestly. Like,
I don't know. I just like I'm just shocked. Like you would see a card that both cards like effectively do the same thing, except one is cheaper and
like
gives
clearly
you
better.
more.
Yeah, because you also
Like-
give something 5k power.
Like is getting the card now worth one extra CB?
Mm-hmm.
I think the factor for Japan is they have a slightly different meta now with Monster Strike.
True.
Oh
So-
right.
And Monster Strike is retired dot everything.
You
So
just
maybe they're
retire
trying
the board.
right.
Yeah.
So you don't want to commit 3 grade 3s into Chosen Knights only for it to be burned down by
Oh, that's
that is
point.
true.
Monster Strike.
I actually completely forgot Monster Strike existed.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not relevant to us because we're probably not getting it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's fucking game here.
for us, like play Chosen Knights 100%. Don't
Mhm.
don't
I-
look back. Full
So
speed
it's
ahead.
kind of so we can't even like discuss like it's hard to us to even make like no that's a good point. I'm sorry for what I said earlier.
Yeah.
Like basically like we can't even like we don't even have a comparable metagame because
Yeah.
we have they have this deck that's like the single most powerful retire deck in the game
Mm-hmm.
and we just don't have that.
Yeah.
So we
Although-
kind of have to look at it through a lens or take it with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Although
And
I
then
will
we have
say,
to
like,
see how long it's relevant.
before
Right.
Monster Strike came out, like, I feel like Japan was sleeping on Magnolia, definitely, Orphist a little bit, although I think the EN side of thing overhyped Orphist a whole lot.
I honestly think the people on the Orphis train are a little obnoxious, but that's just me.
Yeah. Oh, they're definitely obnoxious. Like, I think the deck's fine, especially with the more grindy tools. I think it's one of the more successful 3-attack decks when the comparison point is Zorga at the moment. It's just...
Mhm.
So yeah, I think in that sense, Japan, before Monster Strike, was sleeping on those two decks. I think Magnolia stock has fallen after Monster Strike.
Oh yeah, definitely. It
I-
doesn't play well into it didn't play well into Leonard and Bruce. It had a good matchup into Bastion.
Yeah.
It was probably even into Nirvana, but I think Monster Strike, like granted it's not super popular, but you just never know what you might run into a big tournament, and it doesn't feel like it's a safe take because if your
Yeah.
opponent round 1 flips up Monster Strike, it's like, well, my whole deck just kind of doesn't work, or maybe I can try to get in real quick before they burn it down, but I don't know because you don't have a lot of recursion tools in Magnolia outside of Wild Intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I
Which-
feel like I'd be on like Bruce or Nirvana. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like Nirvana. I think it's
Yeah. I like
Interesting.
Nirvana too. It's quite enjoyable. Curious to see how Lyrical Monasterio will affect the meta game coming up for us.
if your opponent flips the prison girls, just run.
I think, excuse me, I think Lyrical will be a good exercise to this whole theory of the 3-attack deck syndrome, because the idea of it's been around since like V era, maybe
Yeah.
even during Premium era, but we'll see which Lyrical decks float to the top. The
I mean-
easy early bet is like Kyrie, because it's is that her name, Kariri?
Kyrie?
Some
Yeah.
What's the theme of the deck? Because I don't remember any of these names.
She's the one who bounces.
Yeah.
Oh,
She's a
right.
start
The
deck.
first episode. Yeah. I like the one
So-
that counterblast orders.
Yeah.
I think that one's neat.
I think that deck would be my bet, because that one looks like it has the closest power level to, like, Bruce.
I don't know.
That's
I
the one
think
that's one that gives us sad Zorga noises.
Yeah. It's okay, we now have the Gemstone Girl, which is a worse version of Zorga.
I keep forgetting. There's so many decks in Lyrical. It's so hard for me to keep track of them. But I think the one that like cares about even odd grades is like actively horrid.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah, I think that one's gonna try too hard to make it work.
Because
that
you
one
can
needs a lot of moving pieces to get to
well,
work properly.
you can make it work if you almost guarantee even.
Well,
But like,
that's the thing. They have a card where the turn is bound, it just activates both.
oh, I see.
Yeah,
So,
they have one that
yeah.
can bound activate both. They have one or two cards that can put another card into your bind or increase the grade of a card
Yeah.
in your bind zone to
But
manipulate that.
I think the
Uh,
strategy is like activating the one that, or binding the card that activates both, and then playing the grade one that gives things 5k and a crit, so that
they'll
you have,
basically have both. I see.
yeah, so you effectively have 10k and a crit to your front row, and you just rush. The problem is you need an entire board of odd grade cards, and then you also need the grade 3 that activates both wings when it's bound.
Yeah, I hate
So,
this. I hate this design.
yeah, like, I'm pretty sure well, I think Alestiel has better chances of stealing the game compared to Willista. Willista so far looks like Zorga, but more convoluted.
I think another avenue for 3 attack deck would be kind of like the Knuckle Brawler thing that we saw revealed today. Granted,
Oh.
she does have pieces that can multi attack, but
Yeah, I
like
was about to
in
say, like, that deck has a 4th attack, though.
yeah, like in a world where it didn't have that, being able to attack 3 things at one time is a
Mm-hmm.
nice circumvention to being able to attack 3 times. It's like I attack 3 times, but I punch 3 things in one attack, so it's
Yeah.
like I'm attacking 5 times, kind of, sort
Yeah.
of. But
Well, that kind of falls into, like, grind deck category, because it also draws cards when it hits, so...
yeah,
Seems like what
and
you're wanting to do is control
Whoa,
the opponent's...
fun.
What?
I'm just reading this card, Clarissa.
Yeah.
This is sweet. I like this. I want it
Yeah.
on hit 3.
Yep. So yeah, when you play the... So it has an order where all your units with the archetype name get 5k, and then, you know, when it would attack, you can choose 3 things and attack them all in one battle.
Wait, you have to have 5 units to play it?
Yes.
you have to have 5 different names.
Oh, I'm off it. Never mind.
But it includes herself, so you just need 4 rear guards with different names,
Yeah, but
and
Would
you
they have
get
to
2
have
of them
their
through
names
the ride line.
You get 2 through the ride line, and the grade 2 searches anything with a different name. So
No, I
you
still
really
hate
so you really just need one piece, basically.
And then the grade 3 gets the order, which does the punchy.
Yeah.
I do like the punchy.
Yeah. I think
Granted, the
Clarissa's...
punchy only works if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3, though.
Yeah, that's the thing
Uh,
that's turning me off of this deck, honestly, is that
But now I hate it more.
if you go first, your opponent is free to just rush you down.
This is lame.
Yeah.
I
Like,
was in on it because I was like, draw 3, and then I was like, nope, not at all.
yeah.
But if you go first, you have the order just chilling in hand for the following turn, the Persona Ride turn.
Yeah.
And then you go Persona Ride punchy with multi attacking because you have don't remember the name, but you have
You have a
one-
grade 2 that, like, when it hits, you can discard a card to restand it. Or when your Vanguard hits, you can discard a card to restand it.
CB1, discard a card. I wish this card also didn't need a CB1 to search for the order.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty cool if that were not the case.
Yeah, I think my top
It's generally
contenders for Lyrical right now are the Cat Girl with the song orders, because lol 5 attacks with a Sentinel restrict. I think Felty Rosa, the Ghost Girl, is another one that looks pretty good because potential 5 attacks, turn 3, and 4 drive checks. You do have to counterblast for each one, but you know,
small potatoes.
yeah, like each counterblast is an extra drive check, and also means you call the thing to rear guard, so also another attack.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think Felty Rosa and Laurel Nerl, the cat girl, look the best coming out of it. I want to like Kyrie more, but like it is conspicuously missing rear guards that return things to hand. So you have a whole bunch of on-play effects and only one way to return things to hand.
Ah, yeah, that's a big design gap there.
Yeah, so that is a major thing missing from Kyrie, and it is my only criticism of the deck right now, because I think offensively it does fine.
I made the mistake of scrolling past Dudley Emperor again. How sad.
Yeah, people were asking me how I felt about it. I was like, I kind of haven't taken a look into V series in a couple years now, so this is like I'm sad it's super restrictive, but I also kind of expected it because it was like one of the main things I talked about when Rise of Nova came out was design space of future grade threes could be impacted because Rise of Nova exists.
Yep. And I think
So
that's
now,
binge. Well, it wasn't really true for Lucifer, right? It was just like
no, it wasn't true for Lucifer at all. He goes perfectly fine with Rise of Nova.
big 5 attacks.
Yep, but now they force you to play a Dudley centric deck to get max benefit out of Dudley Emperor.
Yeah, I saw that. I was
Which is
like,
kind of weird because old Dudley Emperor didn't care.
nope. Summon to Panzer Gale. Ah, yes.
Oh, that's the OG play. Not everybody knows about the double Panzergale play.
Look, sometimes you need that value shield.
Yeah, sometimes I gotta survive. You know, get that double intercept.
I hate we didn't have enough vanillas in the back row, so you had like a 15 column or something stupid.
Yep. It's like, you don't die this turn. Let me get a Panzergale and a Bracky. Maybe I can push you and survive. Get a little mix going on.
Special
Oh
interceptors.
man.
Yeah.
Old school.
So, was there anything else we wanted to say about our 3 attack topic?
I guess I'm proud of us for not mentioning making 3 attack decks faster, because that would just put us into the whole issue of V series all over again.
It's
So I'm
not
proud
something.
of us for that.
I think
Yeah.
my favorite one is the burn damage with ridiculous conditions, because the ridiculous conditions can often be like a fun mini game. But again, I really want to stress that how important it is for the opponent to be able to like do something
Yeah.
and not just like let you freely get there. Like, I guess if it takes long enough, they can let you freely get there, because then it's like you let them live for 10 turns, it's your fault. Like,
Yeah.
but if it's just kind of like, oh well, I don't know, sat around and did nothing for 3 turns, I get to kill you now, is kind of lame.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how Geese felt sometimes.
But yeah,
Oh, no.
I think
Old memories.
like consistent crit pressure, maybe around turn 4 to be on par with Bruce, is a way to go for the short term. Like interesting alternate win conditions, like Die Kaiser or what they're doing with Reiji right now, where you have, if you honestly let them get to a point where they can burn you for game, then you did something wrong, and then interesting defensive options like defender tokens for Orphist or something like that.
I think if you let Reiji get to the point where they get to deal 2 damage to you, you're obligated to scoop.
Yeah. Like, once they put that 15th card in their bind zone, you're like, alright, just put your cards down.
You should just say win the game on it, honestly.
Yeah.
I think you're obligated.
Personally, I like my idea of the face down set orders. However, that kind of puts us back into the whole idea of they'll probably still work with the things that already have the multi-attacking going on, so you would still need to balance them. But maybe if there was a way to do it to make it kind of fair across the board, that'd be fine. But I wouldn't trust a new mechanic to be balanced like that out the gate. But I do like the idea of the burn damage, because I've played games with it. I've seen it work pretty well, and I think Vanguard could pull it off with the 3 attack decks pretty okay.
Yeah.
Just be like, at the end of battle, Vanguard is Zorga or something like that. Sack 3 or 4 things, burn your opponent for damage. If they're 4 or less or something. Just a high cost, and like, I'm Zorga, fine, it's whatever, I'll get it back anyway next turn. Doesn't matter. This is all trash to me anyway.
That's what Vanguard needs. impact cards.
Oh no. Final phase, sack my board, deal a damage, you lose, GG.
It always tilted me when Buddy Fight players just didn't say final phase every turn.
Oh, that's right, because
Like
you could
first
do
turn,
that.
final phase. Like just say it. Like there's no you'll lose nothing by saying it. You're like, all right, go
Right?
ahead.
Final phase, do nothing.
He's got to put the fear of God in them, you know.
I wonder how that would work. I didn't even think about that, but I guess we can explore that in a future video.
That's true.
Maybe.
Because who knows? I think it would be kind of interesting to just have like a final phase mechanic in Vanguard. If we, very briefly, I don't know how it would balance because the conditions for final phase were all over the place. It's like, opponent doesn't have something in the middle. Well, Vanguard can't have that condition. So,
Right.
what's the next thing down the line?
Just other like ridiculous, like very specific situations.
Yeah, your opponent
both-
doesn't have two things in the front row.
Yeah. Like, both players have 5 damage, and you've Persona Road this turn.
Final phase.
Could you
It's
imagine?
like, you know how at the end of a turn where somebody's like thinking for a second, it's like, you done? Actually, no, final phase. What?
Well, we'll let everyone think about that. And yeah, so I think that's a good place to stop for us.
All right.
Where can they find you all?
Well, where can they find you first?
Oh, me? You can find me on Twitter at Wiggums, 2Gs, 2Zs.
You can find me at Plasma Eclipse. You can also find our show at Nexus at Night.
You can find me on YouTube at Living Proof. You can find me on Twitter at Living Proof VG, no spaces. And then you can find me on Discord, where I spend a lot of time chatting with people who wants to pop in.
Yes. And thank you to our $10 patrons, Darren, Cole, and Josh. If you'd like to support us, there will be a link in the comments. $5 and up gets you a whole ass bonus show. $10 gets you a shout out like I did just now.
Hey, not bad, not bad.
All right. Thank you
all
very much.
Oh.
Hey, we've said it at the same time. We're so in sync.
And see you all
Hanukkah.
next week.
Bye, everybody.
Where's it? Yeah.